Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. And in this video we're gonna take a look at this brand new 7Artisans 9mm f5.6 super ultra wide lens. Yes, 9mm, but this is not a fisheye, this is a rectilinear lens and one of the widest angles you can buy for your full frame camera. This is a fully manual lens, manual focus, manual everything. And this is available for Sony E, Canon RF, Nikon Z and L mount cameras. And in this video we're going to take a look how this performs and if the fully manual operation is any kind of a real-world downside. Oh yes, one more thing, I'm using the brand new 7Artisans wireless microphone also in this video. Please let me know how you like the audio quality in the comments down below. Maybe you thought that your iPhone wide-angle camera is wide, but let's compare it to the 7Artisans 9mm f5.6. Let me take first a test picture with my phone camera. And here's the picture. It is pretty wide, but let's pull out the 9mm f5.6 and take another picture on this lens. And this makes the iPhone wide angle look almost like a telephoto lens. Okay, maybe not quite, but when I put these pictures on top of each other, you can see that the iPhone doesn't look that wide anymore. The build quality, in my opinion, is really good. This is all metal construction, except the lens elements, of course, which are probably made of glass. I've handled some 7Artisans lenses before, and I think this feels a little bit better built than the previous ones that I've handled. Not that those were bad or inferior quality either. I just feel that 7Artisans have improved their quality a little bit with this lens. The clicks on the aperture ring are not evenly spaced, and I think that is one of those things that separates this from those super high-end and more expensive manual focus lenses like Zeiss or Voigtlander and such lenses, because those lenses never have unevenly spaced aperture ring. The diameter of the front of the lens is 70mm, but there is no filter thread and this lens hood is fixed. You can't remove it and you can't use normal filters with this lens because this is simply too wide for normal filters. You would need like this big filter to cover the angle of view. This is so super wide, especially for interiors, that it literally opens up many new views. And it's even a little bit difficult to pre-visualize your pictures until you look through the lens, through the viewfinder or the back screen, because it's so wide, it's hard to imagine. But it can also wear out pretty quickly if you use this all the time. But this is one of the most fun wide angles that I have used for a long time. I can see a little bit of barrel distortion towards the edges of the frame, but in my photography I never found that to be any kind of a problem. However, if you shoot something really critical, you'll probably want to correct the distortion in post, but it's very easy to correct because it's very linear barrel distortion, easy to correct in any post-processing application. One thing you have to remember, because this is a fully manual lens, you have to remember to set the focal length for your IBIS. This morning when I was taking my first pictures, I was wondering why the IBIS is acting up. But I realized that the previous lens, fully manual lens that I'd been using with this camera was a 500mm, which is pretty much at the other end of the scale compared to a 9mm. So the IBIS was shaking all over the place because it thought I was using a 500mm lens. As soon as I set the focal length for the IBIS to 9mm, things smooth out and the IBIS started working as it should. So remember to set your IBIS to 9mm when you use, or to whatever it is that you are using, whatever lens you have. If it's a fully manual lens, it's important to set the IBIS also for the focal length of the lens. This weighs in just under 500 grams and it feels heavy for its size. But like I said, it's made of metal and there are a lot of glass elements here, and I guess that explains the weight. This is actually a pretty interesting lens also for street photography, especially if you're a little bit shy. Even if you point this at people, they simply don't realize that they are included in the picture because they have no idea how wide this lens is. They think they are outside of the frame, or they simply cannot fit in the frame because you are so close to them. This is a fully manual lens, and it also means manual focus. But with a super wide angle like this, manual focus is actually faster than autofocus. For example, today, most of the time, I kept the focusing distance to 3 meters, and there's so much depth of field even at wide open at 5.6 that I hardly ever have to change the focusing distance unless I'm going really close to something, to my subject. The minimum focusing distance is 0.2 meters, which is roughly about 0.1 meters from the front element. However, your subject is still gonna be pretty small in the picture because of that super ultra wide angle of view. The maximum aperture is only f5.6, which is not too bright, but it doesn't matter so much on a super wide angle like this. Besides, it keeps the size and weight of the lens in somehow sane levels. As it is right now, the front element is quite rounded, bulging, but if the maximum aperture was something like 2.8, the front element would be huge and the lens would weigh like 3-4 times as much as it weighs now. And you can shoot at really long exposure times with a wide angle anyway if your camera body has a stabilizer. I don't see the maximum aperture as a big problem on this lens. The backlight performance in general is quite good. However, sometimes when a strong light hits the front element at certain angle, you can get quite strong reflections and flare. But then if you move your camera just a little bit, the flare goes away. As you can see in these two examples, the sun is almost exactly at the same position in the frame, but the other picture has very strong flare and reflection and the other picture has hardly any. In my photography, this was never a big problem, but it's something to be aware of anyway if you use this lens. Let's try this for vlogging. It's a manual focus lens, but there's so much depth of field that it might just work for vlogging. I'm first gonna set the focusing distance to 0.3 meters and I'm gonna hold the camera so close to my face and look how much of the environment you can see in the frame. There's so much room around my face, even though the camera is so close to my face. And now I'm gonna set the focusing distance to 0.5 meters. I'm gonna hold the camera a little bit further away, and there certainly is a lot of the environment visible around me or behind me. But I think this is almost too wide for vlogging. And the combo, the Sony A7 Mark IV and the lens, it's a little bit heavy to hold for extended periods of time. So I think this is just too wide for vlogging and a little bit too heavy too. The sharpness of this lens really surprised me because many ultra-wide angles suffer towards the edges of the frame, especially wide open. But this lens is really sharp at every aperture. The best performance comes at f5.6, f8 range, but I shot many pictures at f11 and I was very happy with the results. I'd probably avoid f16 and f22 because of the refraction, and there's not any good reason to even go that far because there is so much depth of field already at f5.6 wide open. I had such a good fun with this lens, and the optical performance of this lens much exceeded my expectations. I put the price here on the screen in different currencies. My opinion is that the price is quite reasonable for such a unique lens and for such a good optical performance. I had so much fun with this lens, and I can highly recommend this lens for anyone who's interested in such an ultra-wide lens. It's a lot of fun, but it can also, of course, wear out quickly if you use this all the time or very often. This is all I have for you today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video useful or interesting or entertaining, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below if you don't live in Finland. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.